When an older citizen needs assistance, who can they turn to? The answer is the Aging Commission. Tonight on The Best Times, we have a conversation with the new Executive Director of the Aging Commission of the Mid-South. And we'll talk about ways of coping with one of life's most devastating events, the loss of a spouse. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. In 1965, the Older Americans Act became law. It was the first federal initiative to provide comprehensive services to our older citizens. Part of the outgrowth of the Older Americans Act was the formation of aging commissions throughout the country. Locally, our own Aging Commission of the Mid-South provides services to a 4-county area, and it acts as a gateway to a wide array of services provided by other agencies. But unfortunately, surveys show that the people who are most at risk and most in need of the Aging Commission services are largely unaware of its existence. Tonight on The Best Times, I sit down for a conversation with the new Executive Director of the Aging Commission of the Mid-South. I know the Aging Commission concept was formed out of the Older Americans Act in 1965. From my count, there's somewhere over 600 or so local area agencies of aging throughout the country, in every state.
That's correct.
But my question is, what does the Aging Commission of the Mid-South do?
Sure. The Aging Commission of the Mid-South serves as a single point for information and assistance in entering services for persons who are aging and are disabled here in this public service area of Tennessee. And we're Public Service Area 9, and that includes Fayette, Lauderdale, Shelby, and Tipton counties. And we're really set up to be the single point of entry for those citizens, those Tennesseans needing assistance due to their aging or disabling conditions.
Now, when you say assistance, what are we talking about? What kind of services are we talking about?
For example, we're the gateway into the Options Program.
What is the Options Program?
Sure. The Options Program is a program funded under the Older Americans Act that provides homemaker care, some transportation, senior resources that seniors need, maybe a food supplement or something like that in their home. As part of that as well, we have the Family Caregiver Program, where we offer some support to caregivers who are looking after their family members in the home. Maybe that's counseling or something like that. We can purchase some adult day services. Additionally, we are the contracted by TennCare to gather information to get adults into the Choices program, which is a Medicaid-sponsored program that provides funding, again, for homemaker or home health aid services to keep a family member in the home and avert nursing home level care.
Yeah, the expense of that.
Right. Additionally, we serve as a public guardian in this area for older persons. So, for example, if an older person has no one left in their family or no one available to them to act on as a guardian on their behalf, should they need help making financial decisions and medical decisions, we serve as that person, as that entity as well. We offer something called the SHIP program here, which provides counseling to people about Medicare, particularly their Part D. We have something called the Senior Medicare Patrol here in town and in the area, where we're educating seniors about their vulnerabilities in fraud being perpetrated against them and their benefits. Have a worker who helps persons get on the SNAP program. That's food assistance, and we find that seniors underutilize that program more than any eligible group.
Really?
Seniors underutilize that particular program.
Why do you think? They just are not aware of it?
Many of them are just not aware of it, and just don't think of themselves as someone who would be available, like as someone who that would be available for. And so many of them just simply don't know. Additionally, we have some transportation services that we contract in throughout the public service area, but we really serve as that place to make handoffs to additional agencies.
Sort of a gateway.
Sort of a
gateway. To other services.
That's right. One of our most popular program is assistance with food, be that what seniors often refer to as Meals on Wheels, being home delivered meals, or we have just as many seniors going into what we call congregate meal sites, which is a center of some sorts, and having a meal there during the day. So we connect people with those services.
And I
as
understand,
well.
I mean, there's always a waiting list, right?
There is always a waiting list for many of the services we provide.
Is it because of lack of money? Lack of money, not just for the agency, but for the other agencies that provide those services?
So we contract with those other agencies providing the services. We contract with them to do the services, and yes, it is because of lack of funding. We would be delighted to provide more seniors in-home meals, or give them an opportunity to come to a senior center or a congregate living site if there were more funding available.
Well, let's talk about the state of seniors. In your view, from where you sit as the executive director of the Aging Commission, how would you evaluate the state of seniors in this, what is a 5-county area that
Four counties,
that you cover?
So for me, I would tell you that there are a couple of things that I worry about every day for seniors. As our population ages, we see more persons who are vulnerable. We see more persons who are taken advantage of financially, and so that's a real concern for me. We have something called the CREVA program at our organization, and so, for example, if a senior is a victim of a crime, we can offer some direct assistance to help them negate some of the effects of that crime, some assistance in purchasing supports or services for them to help with that. We can, if the senior's been a victim, say, of a financial crime and they need help paying a light bill to keep the lights on, we can do some of that for them as well as then connect that senior with other supports and services to hopefully decrease their vulnerability for future crimes or something like that and happening against them. So that's a real concern for me. We talked a little bit about food and hunger. Recently, the Memphis metropolitan area was named the area in the United States where more seniors were experiencing food insecurity than any other metropolitan area, and so that's a huge concern for me.
And you mentioned earlier the poverty level too.
Yes, recently we have also in the Memphis metropolitan area been identified as the area where the number of seniors living in poverty is growing quicker than anywhere in the United States as well. And so all those things really tie themselves together for me and paint a picture of really where we're headed. And many of the seniors we know are experiencing those sorts of difficulties when we hear from them.
I've also read that one of the number one questions that aging commissions throughout the country, not just here, get asked is about transportation. Questions about transportation. How do I get to the doctor? How do I get to the grocery store?
Sure.
How do you answer that?
Well, here's what I always say. That's a question for all of us as we age and we are unable to transport ourselves. Here in the Memphis area, we have a number of resources available to people. So for example, if a person receives their health care through a Medicaid funded program, transportation to the physician is included in that service. Other services are available here in the Memphis area, but persons have to pay for that. We at the Aging Commission do provide some transportation, single trip transportation to persons getting to some of the senior centers, and then those persons participating in the senior centers get some additional transportation resources to a doctor or a Walgreens or a grocery store or whatnot. But that continues to be a need. Here in Shelby County, we have something called 901 Ride Choice, which is really a number you can call, and they will help you directly arrange transportation and what have you. But the seniors do have to pay for that. Out in the counties, it becomes even more difficult for the seniors. We recently have received some funding where we will be working within particularly Lauderdale County starting in next year, hopefully, to establish some sort of volunteer transportation network out there for them to help seniors get to physicians and what have you. But that's really an ongoing question for seniors.
We spoke earlier about the fact that the Aging Commission is a gateway to services. And many of the services we have spoken about right now are really based on need. You have to qualify for a lot of those services, correct?
Yes.
Yet it still remains, would you say that the Aging Commission is the place to call if you've got any question?
Absolutely. Any questions, we're really available for that. And we have all sorts of resources that we can direct people to regardless of their level of need. People can call our 222-4111 number at any time if they don't get a live person at that point. And we here's something most people don't know about us. We have 4 people answering that line who are busy 8 hours a day answering that line, literally all the time. If you don't get a live person to answer, you get some instructions about leaving a message. We will get back to you within 2 days, 2 business days, of any call received on that line. And so we're really available there to the entire community for information and assistance, no matter what your needs might be.
Let's talk big picture of aging, because as we both know, with the boomers aging, the population of older Americans is going to increase dramatically in years to come. I mean, from what I hear from you at the Aging Commission, you're already in a situation where you've got waiting lists for everything. What does the future hold for us?
Well, as we age, and many of us find ourselves in a situation where we are outliving generations before us because of the wonderful medical communities that we have and the treatments that we have available to us. I think that the challenge for seniors is to find that quality of life for themselves, and whatever that may mean, and seeking the sort of assistance that they'll need to live that quality life. There are resources needed for seniors to do that. Many seniors don't have resources of their own that they've been able to accumulate to provide for their needs, and so places like the Aging Commission will become even more important for us in our society. These, as you mentioned, the AAADs across the country, we'll see more pressure put upon them to maybe be a safety net for seniors who didn't have the opportunity to accumulate the resources to care for themselves as they aged.
All right, well, Kim, thank you for being on The Best Times and talking about the Aging Commission.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
If you have questions about senior services, the Aging Commission is the place to find the answers. When your spouse dies, your whole world changes and your life becomes an emotional roller coaster. Experts tell us that there is no right way to feel about the loss of someone so close to you. Many people are left feeling entirely alone and incomplete. In spite of the fact that we all know there is a 50-50 chance of being the surviving spouse, No one is ever fully prepared for that eventuality. Tonight on The Best Times, we talk about ways of coping with the loss of a spouse. According to figures from the last census, about 40% of women, 13% of men 65 plus are widowed. How does the loss of a spouse change your life?
The change that goes on with someone who's older, that's been married for a long time, there's a change in routine, there's a change in familiarity, there is a change that you don't have that close emotional relationship with another person, interpersonal relationship with another person that knows you well, that knows your good qualities, that knows your bad qualities. And so that really leaves a big spot that's open in the life of someone that's become widowed.
You know, for years we've been told that grief comes in stages. The familiar stage: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. 5 stages. Is that true for everyone? Do we experience these emotions in that order?
Those are, they were called stages because the expert from years ago, a Swiss psychiatrist, Dr. Kubler-Ross, she was studying death and dying. And what she found was that these are the stages, but they don't come exactly in that order. That some people move from stage to stage in a brief amount of time. Some people get stuck in a certain stage. But what's more common with somebody that you've been in a long relationship with is that there's oscillation, there's fluctuation. You know, one day you're accepting things and the next day you feel angry, or the next day you feel frustrated.
Well, as we spoke earlier before the interview, we talked about triggers, something that can trigger you. You see a picture, perhaps, or something that triggers a memory.
Remembrance is an unusual thing. There's usually a emotional response when there's recall. But we know that it's probably best not to try to block your recall of that person. It's really just to accept the way things are, the way things have changed in your life, and accept that emotion, even if it comes in a wave, it's going to be normal and it's going to be fleeting.
Now, the grief process in grieving the loss of a spouse, obviously there's an emotional aspect to it, a mental aspect, but can it also manifest itself physically?
We certainly know that having a grief loss is a stressful event, which can change a number of different systems in our body. If we have illnesses, there could be an aggravation of that underlying illness. If someone has an emotional or mental disorder, there can be aggravation of that underlying emotional or mental disorder.
How long does grief last?
We would say for someone who's older, who's been married quite a long time, anywhere between 16 months to 3 years could be seen as, quote, normal. The cutoff that we get worried about people that aren't moving on and aren't more balanced in their life, we really worry about people at the year period. Even though if you've been married for 50 years to somebody, it might take you 2 to 3 years to have recovery and a normal functional life after that kind of loss.
Is there a difference in grief between men and women? Do men take it harder than women?
Men certainly take it harder than women, and there's a lot of ideas about why that is, but it probably is that women are better at identifying and expressing their emotion. And we know that grief and bereavement, this is a normal thing. And so women do better with normal emotional expression. They probably do better at identifying their emotions better. And They typically have a wider social network, and they're more connected, and they're a lot more willing to get help if they find that they're still struggling.
Well, let's talk about that support group, friends, family, even organized support groups. How important, how valuable are those groups during this grieving process?
I believe they're very valuable. There's sometimes resistance because people individually know that they are normal, and their families know that they are normal. But having a safe space and a confidential space to share how you feel and how your life is like, and getting feedback from other people that have been through grief and loss can be very helpful. So I'm all in favor of it. I usually recommend that my patients attend a grief class, which isn't therapy, so it's not sitting in the round, it's sitting like you would in class. And you're learning about what normal grief is like and how people experience it.
How do you move forward? Life continues on.
Right. The main tips that I give to people that are working with patients that have grief, people that have grief, or give to people that are suffering with grief, is that I encourage them to have positive memories of the person that had died. And if they need to do something special that's in a memorial for someone, honor their life in some way, that can be very helpful. The main thing is this idea of reconnection. And we are never talking about replacing the person that's died. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about reconnecting with friends, family, an organization, a group. So our ultimate goal is to help people to reconnect and to live a life even though they've had this life-changing loss.
Can grief be so debilitating that it actually interferes with your life, living your own life? And what do you do in a situation like that when grief is so severe?
When you're emotional distress, it starts to get in the way of getting your daily routine done, taking care of important matters that need to be taken care of in life. We look at functionality, and we certainly know that people's emotional distress can cause sleep disturbance, appetite change, weight change, problems with focusing and concentration. But we know that loss and grief is a suffering state. And so we're looking at the processing of that emotional suffering and getting on with your new normal, which is to live your life without the person that you've been connected to all those years.
Well, finally, for someone, a viewer perhaps watching this who has lost a spouse recently, what's your best advice?
Oh, my best advice is don't be shy about sharing with other people, even if it's in your family, your friends. Talk about how you feel about that. We think that can help us to process our normal emotion, is to be open and talk about it. Some people journal, some people write, but sharing with another person. Should you not really have those people in your life that you know how to connect to, we have grief groups and support therapy groups all over the Memphis area. Most people are pretty normal. They're not going to need counseling after grief, but there are people that are maybe having trouble. They're struggling, and they need to connect with a counseling center or counseling group. And churches have these groups already in place, and they have a curriculum to teach people and families about what normal grief is like. There's a website called Grief Share, which is open for everyone. There are special programs that are designed for children. I don't think we have any special programs designed for seniors, but there are special programs designed for children lost.
All right, well, Dr. Hill, thank you very much for being on The Best Times.
Thank you for having me.
For more information on coping with the loss of a spouse, search the website of the National Institutes of Health. For help finding a GriefShare group, go to griefshare.org and search for your city or zip code. Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you.